Today it's my absolute honor to be moderating this panel, and thank you to the organizers of this summit for trusting me and trusting this panel with this conversation. Just in case you're wondering if you're in the right room, today we're discussing scaling local innovations, building resilient tech ecosystems for economic and social transformation. As we all know, Kenya's digital health tools like eCitizen and so on have opened up exciting opportunities, service delivery and financial access, but we still face real challenges, whether it's interoperability or lack of interoperability, whether it's trust or not trust, and sometimes just too many people, especially those outside Nairobi, are left behind. Most local tech startups are still based in Nairobi, and I'm sure Marcy can speak to that. And while funding is drying up, it's becoming harder for great ideas to grow. At the same time, many women, youth, people with disabilities, other marginalized communities, rural communities as well, are being left out of the digital economy. So this session is about changing that, and we'll explore how Kenya can unlock the full power of digital public infrastructure like digital ID, e-governance, and citizen platforms to grow a stronger, fairer tech ecosystem that works for everyone, everywhere. Now, I had elaborate introductions to the entire panel, but we're running out of time. I was trying to give you that Ian effect, you know, the first session and how everyone felt like a superhero as they're getting on stage. But it seems you won't have that opportunity. So what I'm going to ask is we'll dive right into the questions, and as you take your first question, you could just do, let's say, a 5-second introduction of yourself. Please remember that our hashtags are Africa Tech Policy Summit 2025. You could also accompany that with KEIGF 2025, and remember to use your Slido for your questions. Now, I have a question for the entire panel as we get warmed up. What are you in your organizations or associations doing to break down the barriers that build and help build tech ecosystems that are resilient and drive economy and social change across the country? And allow me to start with Marcy.
Good morning, or good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Marcy Kimalat. I'm the CEO for ASEC, which stands for the Association of Startup and SME Enablers of Kenya. We're an inclusive business membership organization that brings together entrepreneur support organizations that include incubators, accelerators, NGOs, even university innovation hubs that are really supporting startups and SMEs to grow and thrive. As an association, you can understand that we are actually a gathering or a collective gathering of different individuals and organizations that really wanted to build an inclusive economy. The purpose that we were actually formed was, how do we grow the Kenyan innovation ecosystem in a manner that we bring the students, we bring the investors, we bring in government, we bring in the corporates to really harmonize and align different frameworks to support startups and SMEs to actually grow. So some of the things that we've done as the association is under our policy and advocacy pillar, looking at how we can actually simplify what regulation, compliance, and even other frameworks that are there to really support more startups to actually tap into opportunities. An interesting thing that we did this year was host the second annual policy forum, where we had KRA, we had the Kenya Industrial Estates, we had the Kenya Industrial Research Development Institute, and many other governmental organizations that were even showcasing what are kind of the infrastructure they have available, how they have different desks, and even sharing their representative information to actually support the startups and SMEs. One, be compliant. Number two, access the affordable infrastructure. For example, KD has more than 40 centers across the different counties in Kenya, and also looking at how KRA really has been able to simplify and actually come closer to the mwananchi in terms of regulation and also compliance. The other thing that we've been able to do is develop a simple policy toolkit whereby we have been training entrepreneur support organizations that include the trainers, the coaches, and the mentors to really embed policy as part of their curriculum. So even as you're going through an incubation program or acceleration program, you do have the fundamentals to understand what taxation is, even at your local level, but at the same time also plugging you in with the actual representative to help you be compliant. The final thing around closing the barrier is really developing a strong gender and social inclusion strategy, whereby we actually have different organizations having that as part of their core mandate, meaning that we actually design programs, we design info sessions that really cater to the marginalized groups. A simple example is you look at the people living with disabilities, and also looking at the youth and the women in marginalized areas. We have partnered with community centers and local NGOs, which are now the grassroots communities, to help disseminate the information, but not only in English and Swahili, but even in the local language, such that everyone actually is inclusive and being part of that. The final one that I'll mention is on leveraging ICT. As you know, not everyone can have a website or even have Facebook, so we're using also mobile platforms such as Telegram and WhatsApp groups to also help disseminate information to the marginalized groups, and also as a way of capturing the feedback, so that even as we're giving a national outlook in terms of the finance bill, or whether the proposed ICT bill, or whether it's looking at even the disaster risk reduction bill, all that feedback is captured from the local community and then translated back into the national framework. So my own call is just to say that always be part of an association, because yes, you cannot give your individual voice, but collectively we can help shape the policy agenda at large.
Thanks a lot, Mercy. And I know from following your work that the hubs are also slowly moving into sector-specific and really paying attention to their demographic and geographical location as well to support those initiatives. And I hope we can get to that later on in this conversation. But David, what is the Media Council doing to support economic and social change?
I will speak on behalf of the media sector in general. And broadly, we see the media first as a user of this digital inclusion and digital progress. And you all agree with me that we have seen a rapid improvement in the media utilization of digital tools and all that. The collection of the media, the editing and the delivery, now you can get, the media, they have quickly moved onto all access platforms to do that. You can access either your TV, radio, or newspaper article, or breaking news across all digital platforms. And of course, the king of all is the mobile phone. But secondly, the duty of the media to educate and inform. And that is now the media coverage of these matters of digital inclusion and all that, letting people know the availability of these technologies and what they can do. And we agree that we have seen a fair coverage of that across all media and across all platforms. And that goes directly with demystifying myths, prejudices, and trying to take away the fears, because normally people get afraid of these new technologies when they come and all that. So you notice therefore that the media has the dual role of utilizing these digital tools itself to make access to information, transparency, and inclusion faster, but then also informing the populace, the people, that these tools, when utilized well, they can provide this and that. And then going further, I know sometimes it's spreading the fear, but it goes a little further and educates people about the tricks and the secrets and rather the risks across in this digital space. So we have to look at it two ways, that the media, one part, being part, jumping into this circle and the bubble where everybody is jumping in, but stepping out from time to time and providing mirrors and all that, and especially also trying to bring to the Kenyans stories of people elsewhere who have used that. So I think inclusively it's a very collective thing. And from the Media Council, we do a lot of empowerment, training journalists, and media houses, and guiding them about the technologies to employ and all that. And that's why even when we have the annual Journalism Excellence Awards, we have an award specifically for technology and innovation. So how the media have either reported technology and innovation or utilized that technology and innovation to bring this inclusion and transparency.
Yeah, I was waiting for that last aspect that you brought in, where you said you have to train the journalists, because I think that's quite a huge burden that I deeply respect, that you have to get trained and understand the tools, and then you need to use the tools as a journalist, and then you need to disseminate that information and some form of training as well to the public. So you find yourself in a very unique position that I hope we can deep dive into later on in this conversation. Christine, you're currently the Chief Operating Officer at PesoSwap, but also you are the Vice Chair at the Africa FinTech Network. What's the network doing to support economic and social change?
Thank you, Nekesa. I hope everyone can hear me. So yes, I'm the Vice Chair of the Association of Fintechs in Kenya, and we are all at that stage whereby we feel data is everything, and data is a core resource for development, for transformation, for innovation, name it. So right now, we're really pushing the agenda of open banking. This is the agenda of data sharing across industries, across individuals, and across sectors, whereby we want to ensure people use data for what is valid. I know many people in the audience might be thinking, no, we don't want to share our data. We want our protection and our privacy. What are you talking about? But imagine if you owned a business. Like, for example, what fintechs do. You want to lend people money. You want to offer payment solutions, especially to intricate sectors like the travel sector, etc. So imagine if tomorrow you flew with KQ, and they know you've been flying with Jumbo Jet, Ethiopia Air, etc., and you can get access to maybe an upgrade, or you could get access to maybe further discounts, etc., just if they had your data. Just imagine it from that perspective. So you'd be a lot more open into sharing your travel data, of course, within a limit, for the benefit to you as the traveler, to the industry, and also to the whole sector, whereby data can really be used as a resource to leverage and offer solutions. So together with people like FSD, the Kenya Bankers Association, the regulator, that's CBK, we're really pushing the open banking agenda, because you see, like in the UK, they have a data sharing open banking policy, but in Africa, it's not yet reached, and we want to pioneer that in Kenya.
Christine, I think there's still lots of conversation to have there, especially around the trust. I get the efficiency, but I hope that we can deep dive into how we then develop the trust around open banking. Last but not least, obviously, Andrew, you've described yourself as a .ke enthusiast or evangelist. How does that plug into your work driving economic and social change?
Thank you. So for the benefit of our plenary, the Kenya Network Information Center, KENIC, who I represent, we have a delegated mandate to administer the country code top-level domain called .ke. And how I'd like to bring it home in terms of the question around economic and social transformation is the whole question of the domain name system is really about trust. The infrastructure that we avail helps, for example, e-citizen. Some of us have interacted with e-citizen, interacting with government services, paying for government services. But if you think about it, it is hosted on the ecitizen.go.ke. The resilience, the availability, the stability, the security of that infrastructure is what keeps us awake at night. And as long as that critical infrastructure is available for government, for private sector, for civil society, for technical community, then for us the economic imperatives, the social imperative are then delivered. That is a trust that we see, that if we do our job well, quietly in a corner, and nobody makes noise, everyone's happy. If the infrastructure is not available, is not secure, is not stable, then we compromise on the potential accruals of benefits for economic and social upliftment of our people. This is a simple dichotomy I see, and I think it is clear in terms of our mandate that we need to keep doing this and doing this sustainably. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Andrew. And I think maybe just hold on to the mic, because actually my next question is for you and David. We're living in a world or in an age where our government and private sector are truly going digital, and so embracing the tools and so on, and sometimes these are local tools as well. But we're also seeing that this is being accompanied by cyber attacks, data breaches, or even surveillance, or maybe we should say alleged surveillance. So how do we protect human rights, but at the same time build trust while still pushing these homegrown innovations?
Thank you. The way I look at it is around three potentially, can I say, building blocks. The first one, I believe, is the governance piece. Before you even talk about, the threat of cyber, I think we need to get the governance right. And I'll use the example of .ke. We have a board, we have technical committees that support us. Until the governance model of any business makes this top priority, it's not going to happen. So our view is that if you have a technical community or you have representation on the governance of managing any entity, you need people who elevate the conversation for cyber. Whether it's a CIO sitting at the board level, whether it's the CEO himself taking this agenda forward, I think this is critical. That's the first piece. The second piece for us is the people piece. And it's not about techies here. It is, does every individual in your organization, are they seized of what potentially cybersecurity portends for them? So it's the whole business of the learning curve for everyone. So we believe that we need to make investments in the people at a very entry level in terms of what risks are there, personal handling of data, for example, data privacy, their role as potential weak points for the organization in terms of just simple nefarious actors trying to take advantage of them. So I think there's an education leg that we all have to invest in for the people. And the last piece is now for where the technical people come in. I think, ladies and gentlemen, my submission is that we have to make investments around the infrastructure. Somebody has to buy their firewalls. Somebody has to invest in future-proofing the organization in terms of software. So I think that's the long version in terms of our thinking about the three areas that we need to pay attention to. Thank you.
Governance, people, and investment.
Thank you. I will just pick up from where he left about governance. From the Media Council, because we are both a regulator and a media development organization, we try to make sure that, number one, that journalists are fiercely protected when they report on matters digital, in the sense that you have seen the whistleblowing role of the media when we question either it's the safety of a citizen, the ownership, and all that, we make sure that the journalists can be able to report that without fear or favor. Secondly is making sure that, and we work very closely with CA and the Office of Data Protection Commissioner, that any regulations or rules we issue thereof for media reporting on data and all that are simple, transparent, and understandable. Because one of the ways, we're talking governance, one of the ways states can use to make it impossible to utilize certain tools, including digital tools, is get in a mishmash of laws that are complex and not able to understand. So we make sure that we have clear understanding and all that, and we're now working with the Office of Data Protection Commission. And next week we have a session with journalists, because the Data Protection Act, for example, it exempts journalists from other data regulations, because media houses are data processors and all that. And we have actually even updated our code of ethics for media to include how media can utilize data and other digital technologies without violating the law. And thirdly, going back to the regulatory part and the transparency, we have consistently moved to court and even had a lot of discussions with government colleagues, DCI and others, that you cannot use the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act to charge or try to accuse the media or accredited journalists of anything. They are bound by the Code of Ethics. So as we do the training and give the journalists the skills and with them work around codes and all that, as we work with the other colleagues there, we only protect them to make sure that they do that, especially the watchdog role, as we say that when we have tech and the complexities of tech, the opportunities of data, AI, and the fact that it's an emerging field, it's very possible for us to bring in very broad regulations that are opaque and vague and that can stop that utilization and all that. So we have made sure that the media on one end is allowed to utilize tech itself, and secondly, protected, not unnecessarily, taken over to courts and other matters on when they used with different technologies to report to the people. But thirdly, the point where the media steps back and becomes now the watchdog and reports about when they think certain people are using the opportunities offered by tech and all that. So it's a broad level, I said, about the utilization, the facilitating the media to do their job, and then the upskilling on the different guys in the media to understand that, understanding that we have a complex network of media in Kenya, currently at almost 600, a few in Nairobi, and others distributed in the villages, community radio websites and all that. So it's a complex three-pronged approach that we use to make sure that eventually the beneficiary is the Kenyan public. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Andrew. I think what's standing out for me, I definitely agree on the governance and where sometimes things don't move until we have the top-down buy-in and advocating for certain issues. I know that we spoke about investment in the form of infrastructure, but I feel that there's also investment in the form of users actually wanting to learn and taking the time to learn the tools they're using, learn the organizations they're engaging, learn what their rights are, and so on. I want to move us a little further on in this conversation and coming to you, Christine, and then perhaps, David, this might be a question of interest to you as well. Are there any lessons or examples from the region, and especially around funding or PPPs, public-private partnerships, or even stakeholder engagements that we can learn from when it comes to building resilient and social transformative systems?
There are very, very, very many lessons we can learn. For example, when you look at our region as East Africa, we have localized solutions that actually add value. We've seen how M-Pesa has been able to transform lives, given the backing it has from the regulator. So a lot has been done within our ecosystem, other than the success of M-Pesa. We've seen, like, for example, in Rwanda. Rwanda has the Rwanda Innovation Fund. That's about $68.6 million. That's just geared to empower entrepreneurs, build a resilient ecosystem, etc. Then we can also see the efforts being done in Kenya. Like, we have the Kenya National Investment Authority just to aid startups and make sure they thrive. And we've seen our government having the startup bill that goes a bit easy on tax incentives, especially for investors, and also going the extra mile of positioning Kenya as the Silicon Valley of Africa. We've seen a lot of these initiatives, and as also investing in projects like Konza City, that's a technopolis that's mainly geared towards enhancing technology and the ecosystem within diverse fields, etc. Then in terms of stakeholder investments, you've seen in Rwanda, they are co-creating policies, people with the government through the Umuganda. I think it's called, I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong. Maybe I think their G is more of a J. And we've seen the Ajira program in Kenya as well. And for PPPs, we've seen Zipline in Rwanda with the drones. That was so cool, whereby they could deliver medicines. You've seen what Twiga is doing in Kenya. So you see, when we have such PPPs whereby the role definitions are clear, who is supposed to do what, and what ecosystems are being put in place to enable certain things to happen, things thrive. Then we are seeing also initiatives from bodies like the East Africa Council, whereby they're developing policies that are supposed to favor all the East African countries as a whole. So a lot is being done, and I'd urge more people to leverage on the opportunities being given out there, because it's like a lot more is being given by us, private players, and there's a lot of government support that I feel we are not piggy banking on enough to enable to get the benefits that are enabling the ecosystem to thrive. Also, we have thriving ecosystems like the Nairobi iHub, the Kigali Innovation Center. You know, there's so much being done, and we can piggyback a lot on that.
Just hold on to the mic, just so I get you right. Are you saying that the different pieces exist, but maybe we're not taking full advantage, or are you seeing some impact already?
I think they exist, and because we are not taking full advantage, that's why we can't know, like, these are the drawbacks of what's existing. You see, like, there are so many examples of what should be working, but not as many people coming out to say, yeah, by the way, I've done that, I've tried that, you see? Yeah, so maybe if there were more stories, it's just like any relationship. The more you engage, the more you get to discover more things in any aspect. So yeah, that would be my perspective.
Okay, great, thanks a lot, Christine. David, from your perspective, any standouts as far as stakeholder engagement, funding, private partnerships that we should be looking to as exemplars?
Thank you. I would think that, well, we all know about the Rwanda and South Africa PPPs. I know that for sure Kenya also has taken different models, and you understand that what will be happening in Nairobi is not taking place elsewhere. I know that this morning there is a meeting between the ministry and I think there were status about access, and I think it's under the concept of the last mile connectivity. I think the ICT authority, CONSA, and with a lot of support from the communications authority, they are trying to make sure there is internet connection, and I've seen they have looped in Kenya Power, because in this matter of technologies and all that, that access to fast and reliable internet is good, and you may have seen a bit of those hubs, constituency, and everyone, cyber hubs to get the young people work there and all that. So really, in the entire sector of now the media perspective, you've seen even the Digital Broadcast Association, a network of 114 TV and radio stations who broadcast via the internet and all that. So it's easier really knowing that when we have that last mile connectivity, it is really, it's infrastructure, it's like a platform. Therefore you will get access to multiplicity of voices and perspectives that help people move there. But I would urge that one thing we need to know, knowing that sometimes the media is a tool for amplifying these moves and all that, that including in the media, in the design and rollout of policies and strategies at the very initial level, so that then the media accompanies the teams so while the technical teams get on the ground and do our stuff, either it's the financing, the design and all that, the media is amplifying and getting Kenyans on board, because if you move out and do a lot of technical stuff and provide the availability of internet and all that, yet the public, the people out there do not understand what the utilities of these do, then you'll end up people, so that we have a lot of supplier-led and not consumer-led, because it's now about people knowing that we now have access to internet, then we can now get access to internet jobs, online learning, sales and all that. So we must look broadly as these digital matters about really as a mother infrastructure deployment. And that's where now you get, of course, the government level of deploying infrastructure under the Universal Service Fund, Kenya Power and stuff like the last mile connectivity stuff and all that. But then again, we need to come out with the media campaigns letting people know that a certain region of the country, due to the access to the internet, they have been able to do this, the following. They can access foreign markets when they produce. They can check, or the viability of the produce, they learn farming methods and all that, and all that. So by doing that, matching the two, then we are making sure that we combine and they move hand in hand. The policy design, the deployment of these technological and digital opportunities and goods, and the public communications aspect. So if these guys start working together from the initial level of designing and all that, then you'll be able to have a one country movement, so that it's not when something has been deployed, then people wonder, and who wanted it here? We wanted to do a cattle dip here, but you put you know, a Wi-Fi hub and all that. But if you design and let people accompany that, the communication and the mobilization and the deployment will make sure that then it benefits people, because despite whatever opportunities we discuss in this field, unless you can identify the number of people directly benefiting, it is all, it's like, you know, building. We have had things, people about a road to nowhere or a railway to nowhere and all that. So you can deploy as many technologies as possible, but until you show people that this will have this direct impact if you utilize this and this way, that's where. So I think the original design and having a people first approach, the impact people get, know the impact in the very beginning, and then you deploy the media and communications tool to utilize the people there, so that the people anticipate and look forward to the arrival of these technologies, and then they will be invested in the learning and all that. And as usual, that goes with, you must convert, in this level now, you must convert journalists into trainers. So you do to them a TOT, get the people in the media understand, then they can now amplify for the rest of the country to understand. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, David. I definitely agree that sometimes the challenge comes in how we package and how we communicate what would otherwise be really good products. So everyone in the room, I'm just about done with my questions, but I want to know how much more time I can spend on my questions. Do you guys have any questions? Okay, in that case, yes, then I will leave some time for questions. Let me just ask one more. Before we move to the audience. And this is for Mercy and Andrew. It's around policy and infrastructure. What policy or infrastructure changes do you think would make a big difference, so the biggest difference in boosting tech entrepreneurship in rural areas and counties that are often overlooked? Mercy, would you like to go first? Or Andrew, perhaps, since you have the mic.
Okay, thank you. I must confess, because I had seen this question before, I formed sort of a classical approach, which is to draw comparison. I was fortunate, if I may tell a story, that a former PS in the National Treasury lectured me on something called competitiveness, somewhere in Strathmore, public policy. And this topic came up. How do we make our counties competitive? And the parallel we drew was California. Many of us in the room know about Silicon Valley, Los Angeles, San Francisco, the western part of the US. Now California, in terms of GDP, is the size of Canada. Yeah? And so how do they achieve this? And this creates a segue into your question. What policies do we bring in to help some of our counties around this question? So two things. One is did they build competitive advantage? So around training institutions. So Stanford, for example, they had the raw materials of the people that you need to be competitive, at least in the tech space. Yeah? And then clusters built around that. So every county, in my view, should, one, understand its competitiveness, and then develop policies to make this, to deepen this competitive advantage. And different counties will have different competitive advantages or comparative advantages. Some of it could be physical infrastructure or climatic stuff, or people with certain expertise, or historical benefits. I think this is an important place to start. But secondly, and for me, more importantly then, is can you then implement tax incentives, for example, to drive investment in those spaces? Incubation, if it is entrepreneurship support, through, for example, what we've established as a very strong financial infrastructure in this country, can you bring them in to that county to then develop this sustainably? So for example, in California, they have certain tax incentives for people investing in tech. And that is why you have Alphabet there, you have Apple, many companies invest there. Same with Texas and other states. I'm only using the US so that we can have a benchmark of sorts in terms of what could be the foundational things to put in terms of incentives to make our counties, our rural spaces attractive for this ecosystem we're trying to build. I will wrap up with an example from one partnership we've just put in place as Kennick with Eldo Hub in Eldoret. This is a hub of very forward-looking enterprises creating an ecosystem for the entire North Rift. I think with the right incentives, and I hope the governor is listening to me, and the business people in that space, you can then build this out into a potential Silicon Valley in quotes. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And then just building up onto what he mentioned, is that if you look at ICT, I see it in two ways. One is that it's a driving force, meaning you can literally develop the technology, the infrastructure around it. But also there's another angle looking at ICT from the lens of enabling the infrastructure or enabling the ecosystem to actually grow and thrive. So as ASEC, we've established more than not really established, but we actually convene more than 210 hubs across the country, and actually Eldo Hub is one of our members. And the purpose for that is really to ensure that every entrepreneur or even the community has access to a space where they can come up with a solution. They're supported from ideation to commercialization, and even if they're looking for investment, they can actually find it in the grassroots community or in the local innovation hub that is actually based there. And so what we've done is classify them according to different sectors. So there are those who are actually focusing on the ICT angle itself. An example is Moringa School that actually is developing talent for the ecosystem, and they're actually deploying them into corporates, into startups, and many other BPO centers. The other aspect about how to enable different industries, so not only the SME community, but how do you enable industries to actually embrace technology? And those are the different hubs that are working in manufacturing, agriculture, circular economy, even the media. So for example, in media, we have Baraza Media Lab that even has been able to convene the Africa Media Conference, where they bring in actors around that. So how then we enable different sectors to also be digitized and actually moving forward. Now, touching on that and understanding that we really have, quote unquote, the soft infrastructure, we also need the hard infrastructure. And that is why aggressively from last year, we've been actually speaking to different county governments and picking from the CIDP, that's the County Integrated Development Plan, because all of them actually have a component on innovation and entrepreneurship. So what we've actually been able to do is host a roundtable where we have the county government and the innovation ecosystem to really deep dive and even develop a roadmap and see how we can support county governments who actually have the space, they do have some of the funding, and we can come in as the consultants to provide expertise support to the entrepreneurs in that specific county, and especially on a specific sector as well. The other thing that also we're doing at a national level is really working closely with the Ministry of ICT and also trying to make inroads within Treasury, but we've been able to do that through the Ministry of Investments, Trade and Industry, where we're implementing the Kenya Industry Entrepreneurship Project that really supported and catalyzed the industrialization agenda moving forward. So these are some of the things that we're trying to do at ecosystem level or national government level, whereby now we can actually look at the trade policies that we do have in place, and every county actually has a mandate to make their own laws or even implement with their own budgets. And that's why with the multi-stakeholder platforms, we're able to invite development partners, the banks, the SACCOs, and other financiers to actually co-invest in some of these initiatives that can now lead to a proper public-private partnership framework as well. The final one that I'll mention is looking at how, if you're saying infrastructure is a challenge, and I know for ICT to really thrive and grow, you need energy. right? So the reason why even this microphone is working is because we have electricity. But what happens to someone who is in, for example, Lamu, or even, for example, we have a hub in Wajir, that's the North Innovation Hub, that actually has blackouts of electricity. So they actually schedule blackouts. So between 6 a.m. to 12 noon, there's power, and then the rest of the day, there's absolutely no power. So how then do we innovate around areas where there's literally no infrastructure or even low access to energy? What we've actually been able to do is partner with the green associations and being able to support value chain enterprises to come up with green technologies, leveraging solar and other inputs to really support the digitization agenda and not letting energy be a hindrance. A key strategic partnership that we had last year was with the UNDP when they were setting up the Green Tech Innovation Hub, and that's based at Konza Technopolis. And this is a green tech hub that is actually supporting green enterprises, green financiers, and other stakeholders to really look at the green and circular value chain as an opportunity to catalyze also innovation in the ecosystem. So we need more partnerships like that, and really to come in and be a partner to government, because also there's need for capacity building, but also creating the awareness of the need to support the innovation ecosystem. So if it's possible, or making a call to action, if county governments and even the National Treasury can literally make a budget to support these innovation hubs in every county, then we can actually see more catalyzed startups coming up, and then now also working closely with the financial sector to create incentives for them to now fund these specific startups in the tech and the green sector. Then we can now see more enterprises growing, and of course with enterprises growing, we actually are creating real jobs that we desperately need in the Kenyan economy, and also we can export our talent to East Africa and also global.
So much, Marcy. When you see the MC pacing, then you know your time is almost up. But how many questions I see 1, 2, I think we can take 4. I think I see 4 people.
Thank you very much, moderator. Thank you very much, our speakers. My names are Joshua Adem. I'm in the health space. And my question will go to our 2 speakers here. And their neighbors, so I hope they'll coordinate well in answering, responding. That is Mercy and his, my friend there. Now, in terms of developing our local knowledge in this space, I would like to see us growing for sure. But Mercy, you are working with those who are within the informal and also deep in the villages there, where we have our grandpas and grandmas. Now, how do you involve the indigenous knowledge? Like now we have in the climate change space, the indigenous knowledge has picked. And in the medical space, she can tell you, we have translated the terminologies to become more simpler and understood. Now in your area, do you have any roadmap to bring the indigenous knowledge within this space so that we build that capacity and make it to be understood and more people to be involved? Thank you.
Through the chair, do we get all the questions in and then we address them? Okay.
Good afternoon. I think it's afternoon. Good afternoon. I have a question for Mr. David, and this one in terms of, we had the film producers who were arrested a couple of weeks back, and this one is in terms of ensuring the rights and the public interest in media freedom. We've seen cases of individuals who address issues in the public space, in the media spaces. What can we say the Media Council of Kenya is doing in terms of protecting the rights of those individuals in the public, in the media spaces? Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Reinhard, for just a media student. So my question goes to the Media Council. We have the MCK cards. You see, when applying for MCK cards, only takes 1 year for it to expire, the press card. So you can find somebody applied the press card in January. It expires on that 1st December. Another person applies the same press card on May, but it will expire on that 1st December that year. So what are you doing to make sure these people are treated all to the same, that it takes 1 year all? The second question is about the closing of the 23 media stations. What are you guys, which process did you guys follow to close the stations? Thank you.
Okay, my name is Mohammed Hassan. I address my question to Christine. How does Kenya's DPI strategy specifically address digital inclusion for marginalized communities, ensuring that they are not left behind, especially persons with a disability?
Good afternoon. My name is Ruth Machojo from Elite Ability Foundation Africa. I'm also chairperson, Taita Taveta Innovation Hub. My question actually goes to everyone here. How can scaling local innovation help transform persons with disability from just being passive recipient of aid to be empowered tech leaders and change makers? Like, we'd really be happy to have a panel whereby we also have somebody with disability and they're embracing that world. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeremiah Moore, host Semezana Live. My question also goes to any of the panelists. How can we be able, looking at the last segment of the question, policy and infrastructure reforms, how can we be able to incorporate and utilize the talents of young people, especially in the campus space, where we're equipped with skills, but once we come to the job market, the opportunities are few, and when we come with our own initiatives, we find some blockage from the existing, institutions. Thank you.
My name's Amos Ochenge. Mi ni msee wa boda, ule msee wa boda mnaona pale mtaani. So I represent them, though I'm here on my own personal capacity. My first question goes to Mercy. We have so much mad ideas. And then we want, as for me, nimeanzisha so many, I can call them startups, but huwa zinaanguka. And I see people saying that startups in Kenya ni place tu ya watu kuoshea pesa. Mtu anaweka pesa hapo, anaosha pesa yake, alafu hiyo startup inaanguka. I have a very mad idea. For instance, naangalianga Posta Kenya, how we can improve Posta Kenya to have a last mile delivery huko mtaani, kila mtu imfikie. I do deliveries na nafanya boda. And when I look at Posta Kenya, watu tunasema imeanguka because of bureaucracy. Unapata watu wenye wako pale juu tunawapatia idea zetu, we can do ABCD to change this, but they don't want that change to happen because of bureaucracy. Mse anaona tunaenda kumnyang'anya kazi yake. Then my second question goes to David. Wase wa boda, we consume a lot of things tukiwa pale kwa stage. For instance, unapata a journalist spreading misinformation, and then huyo mse wa boda akiona ule mse amesha this kind of information, yeye anafuata kile ule journalist amesema. Yeye hana time ya kuverify whether this information is true or not. Yeye ukijaribu kumwambia this information ni wrong, anakuambia si unaona ni journalist fulani amepost this thing. So how can we, which measures are you put in place to cap that? Because wase wa boda ndio wanatumika, ndio, like, in case we want to pass a certain information, for instance, politicians wanatumia sisi wase wa boda vibaya sana. Wanasema we kuja they gather us, alafu wanatupea pesa, wanatutumia vibaya. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those awesome questions. I think I'll start from the very far end with Andrew moving this side. Andrew, if you could prioritize the one on people with disabilities and how they can move from being consumers to also active participants, and then anything else that you feel you want to plug into, then we can keep coming this way.
Thank you to all the questions. I'll focus on that one and my closing remark, just for the interest of time. When we speak about inclusion or the digital divide, this is a dimension I think we really either misunderstand or downplay. So thank you for bringing it up. I'm not sure I have the answer to how to close this gap in terms of bringing the disabled or differently abled people to the conversation. But this is my proposal, that as we think about inclusion, bridging the device, on what we call, at least in the internet space, the universal acceptance, that we design, especially entrepreneurs in the room, you design all your solutions, your companies, from the bedrock of your product and services with this in mind, so that it's not an afterthought. I think this design thinking is what we need in everything that we bring to market and every conversation we curate. It cannot be an afterthought. And this is my parting shot then, that as the internet governance community in this country, as a civil society in the room, let us continue with this advocacy. I think let's continue pressing, pushing for this change, because it doesn't happen because you wish it, it happens because you ask those hard questions. And so, for me especially, if all of us choose a passion we believe in and push, and for me it is online safety for our youth, for our women. As we bring digital tools to them, let's ensure that it is inclusive and it is safe. Thank you.
Okay, for me, it's more to challenge, especially the people pushing the conversation towards more inclusion, towards the marginalized and the PWDs, etc. Anyone who's built something successful, it became successful because there was a need and there's a problem they solved. Like as Kenyans, you're seeing how big and successful M-Pesa is. I don't want to emphasize M-Pesa is the key solution towards financial inclusion and participation, etc. Though we all know it is, right? Because you can use M-Pesa, I use M-Pesa, my mom uses, my shosho will use. Everyone's included, right? Yeah, so they have solved that problem and they solved it really well. By how? It started with being able to send each other money. Slowly you can pay your bills, you can pay for your businesses, you can send money abroad, you can send money in the region. You see, they made the product so sticky. Why? Because they kept solving the problems as they realized them, right? That's what made it so successful. So I'd urge, especially our younger generation, if you want more people to be included, I think take the initiative towards building these solutions that actually solve problems. And if your focus is on the marginalized etc., okay, no, we can't all build payment gateways or lending apps that can target the marginalized etc. But again, I had talked about Zipline in Rwanda. Something so nice and innovative whereby you can sit in your house, your medicine is delivered to you, your blood samples are collected from you. After some time, it became other products as well. What are we doing as Kenya? You see, what are we doing as Kenya to make sure that everyone is part of the innovation narrative, more people are included, and more companies are also able to scale? Why don't we have a flutter wave in Kenya? You see, like yes, there are payment solutions, but what's this that they did to be able to be a unicorn? So I think those are the conversations we need to ask ourselves honestly and sincerely. What is this that can solve problems in Kenya, and how can I scale it in a way? Because even M-Pesa just started from, it was an idea of somebody, right? So, because I'm seeing many Gen Zs in the room, that's why I'm emphasizing on this, yeah. So maybe if we thought more in that perspective, and also more futuristic options, like right now, Kenya does not have a digital currency. Okay, we have an electronic currency, M-Pesa, but digital currency, because you can see the world is going crypto, crypto, crypto. What are you doing to be able to make that a reality? What forums have you joined to ensure the policies and the laws favor you to be able to do that? I'd leave that question with you.
Thank you for that. And I think just building up on the ongoing dialogue, so there was a couple of questions that came through, especially around indigenous knowledge. Now, if you look at entrepreneurship, we didn't start with ICT. It started way, way back. And a simple thing, a simple technology is this cooking pot. I don't know if you guys know they even make it at the Juakali. The cooking pot that actually it's made out of earthenware. When you cover it, it's literally like a pressure cooker. So there's so many local innovations that were discovered by our great-grandparents that unfortunately we have not been able to document. And then you find that we have so many European technology that's coming in, American, and then we suddenly forget our traditional technology and we embrace European technology thinking it's something new, yet we actually have it. So I think as an ecosystem, we need to do more in terms of identifying those local existing technologies that are working, whether it's in manufacturing, whether it's in healthcare, etc. Even especially in healthcare, if you look at the indigenous plants, they actually solve a lot of diseases that we are facing today. So I know of the story of a lady who was going through cancer, and she actually stayed on a very strict regime on specific herbs and traditional foods, and she was actually able to beat that. In that regard. So there's a lot that we need to do in terms of traditional medicine and really bringing that out and also communicating around it, as what my other panelists was also mentioning about. So we need to actively do that, document, and then also come in now with the lens of business model where we now commercialize those different innovations to the different networks. The other one about scaling innovations for disabilities. So as ASEC, we actually have disability innovation hubs. If you look at Riziki Source, if you look at Innovate Now, and a few others, they actually design their programs targeted to people living with disability. And it's not only the physical one. If you're looking at the deaf people, if you're looking at blind people, and many others. So now what we're trying to do is see how we can raise a bit of funding so that we can also tailor all our curriculum in regards to that. A simple thing is that if we, even in the room, if we had a program that was in Braille, that would have also catered for people with blindness to actually also participate in the session or etc. So we actually have to relook at how we do our programming, funding, so that we also cater diverse products and services to them. However, not all is lost. Back in 2019, Enable actually partnered with KEBS to launch the ICT standards for disability. So most government websites now actually have a disability function where you can actually be able to either reduce the brightness of the screen or be able to even hear with audio if you need, and many other different types of forms. So our call out is actually for more startups and SMEs to be able to embed those ICT standards and also inclusion to support more of them coming into the sector. Around the young people, if you look at the statistics, actually quite staggering, because every year we're graduating more than 20,000 from public institutions, meaning they are qualified, but there is no job. And so what we're trying to do now is really strengthen the university innovation hubs. So far we're working with 15 of them, and also we've partnered with the Kenya National Innovation Agency, where we're building the capacity of these innovation hubs to support the ones that actually want to go into entrepreneurship, to learn the basics of that and even develop a working prototype such that when they graduate, they can now move into our incubators to get more further support and even join a community of other entrepreneurs. So if you're a young person within the university still studying there, I urge you to actually reach out to the different universities, or we can also have a side conversation around that. The other thing that also we're trying to do with the young people is how do we bridge the gap between university and industry. So that's one thing that has always been a challenge for the academic institution, to see how they can actually produce the talent that the industry can absorb. And how we're doing this is by having different forums and conversations. And we will be planning one with the Inter-University Council for East Africa, which is an umbrella that oversees all the different universities, the TVETs and other institutions, to be able to really solve this at an ecosystem level, so that we provide pipeline for all this talent to go in there. But a call out for the young people is that you need to really upskill. If everyone is saying that AI is going to overtake the job, now imagine how aggressive you have to be in that era. So we're looking out for you to be the ones helping organizations reshape their ICT standards, or helping startups and SMEs rethink about how they can use technology for an enabling way. And there are many other opportunities also that you can tap into. The final one was on the Poster Kenya, the gentleman that he mentioned. And I actually forgot to mention this. So one thing we're trying to do aggressively as well is how we can help government actually purchase products and services from the startups. If you look at government as a buyer, it's a very big buyer. And if they're able to onboard as many startups and local grassroots organizations and actually enabling them to provide services which now the government can pay, that's where now the big opportunity is. And so we partnered with the Lithuanian Innovation Agency, and we actually hosted a GovTech workshop where we brought in more than 20 public sector organizations, and we're actually training them on how they can work with the startups to design those kind of solutions and actually be able to procure directly from the startups as well. Alongside this, also we have done a TOT training for our members and looking at how they can also train on cybersecurity. A simple example is last year we trained 100 entrepreneur support organizations, and they went and trained more than 3,000 startups and SMEs just within 3 months. So when you leverage a network, we can actually replicate the impact at a large scale. And the one for the GovTech, I'll definitely keep you posted on that as well. The final one that I'll say is touching on what Christine mentioned about startups. The number one reason why startups fail is that you design something that no one wants to buy. So we always try to encourage startups to always design from the customer first so as to avoid the valley of death, because sometimes you find that you do start a startup, but the customer either is the wrong person or the customer is actually the user, and that's a different conundrum. So we always encourage different startups to join incubator and accelerator programs where you can actually learn more. And if you're looking for a hub to join, you can always go to our website, that is asec.ke, ASSEK.ke, and plug into a mentor or a trainer who can really help you come up with that solution. I think in closing, I'll just say that partnerships are extremely critical, because even for here, as you see in the panel, we are representing different sectors of the ecosystem. So we have to come together, collaborate, and I think also we need to have another session about data sharing, whereby we can look at data as a pool where we can select the kind of insights that we need to drive the ecosystem forward, but we need to do that collaboratively, and then now design what kind of safeguards we need for that data sharing so that we really grow forward. Having a siloed ecosystem, there's no one who actually gains from that. And so we need to come together as different organizations, partner again with the government to really ensure that we're creating those kind of jobs that the young people are looking for, and also really to move the socioeconomic development for the country.
I will pick about 3 matters that have not been mentioned. Number one, Border Guy, thanks for the good job you do. We do not have many cases of journalists or non-media professionals spreading disinformation. What we have are people who impersonate them, and because of AI and technology, they either have made pages, Facebook and Twitter pages in their name or the media house, and they can even mimic their voices and faces and all that. We do not have many cases of that. So I think first what we need to do is give you a lot of media information literacy to be able to sieve accuracy of that information, because if anybody comes and pretends to be a journalist or pretends to mimic a voice or has a logo of a media house and you follow that, which is a very big problem, and I have to warn that I think as a country we haven't reflected about the impact of disinformation. 2 years ago, the World Bank said that disinformation and fake news is one of the greatest threat to human security and all that. And now it is, you go something, there's a logo of a newspaper and you say, you've seen even fake newspaper headlines and all that. So if the Border Guy, if someone shows you a fake newspaper headline and you all agree at the stage and everyone goes on that, is so we need, I think we're going to deploy a little information literacy for those. So any isolated cases of journalists of lack of facts reporting is usually corrected. So the challenge is disinformation, fake news. Secondly, there are gentlemen about the duration of press cards and all that. That's no more administrative. Every professional body, including the city council and doctors and all that, have the duration of their annual practicing certificates and all that. There's when they open and close. Even if you go to the city county now and apply for a 2025 license in November, it expires December the same month. So it's a normal, it's every profession is universal. About closing a radio station, I am not aware of any radio station closed because of what they reported and all that, but you must agree that you work in an ecosystem. When you open a radio station, you have bills due to Kenya Power, you have to pay the Communication Authority, you have to pay KRA and all that. So any of those are factors that do that, and we can't come in. That's not a threat to press freedom. We come in when we are getting a media house closed because of the content or the work of their journalistic work. So tell your bosses who are na Kenya Power, MCL, play license fees and all that. We do not have a closure based on that. Campus space. I think the media houses have given fair good space for young people. We have dedicated space for the very young Saturday mornings, and we have a lot of time for the vibrant campus people around Friday evenings or any times after that. So, and about people with disabilities, we have a lot of sign language across radios, or no, across TVs, really utilizing those who can't. And it's up to what level technology allows. And in case now, if in case you get a news flash on your phone, I think most phones have the ability to get an audio listening and all that. So I'll say that generally, we are on the right path. We just need to move together and identify the roles of each one, and then we collaboratively proceed. Go ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. You've had a wealth of knowledge on this panel. You've had David, CEO at the Media Council. You've had Mercy, CEO at ASEC. You've had Christine, the Vice Chair at the Association of Fintechs. You've had Andrew, CEO at KENIC. So I hope you feel that you took full advantage of the opportunity. If you didn't, I encourage you to do that before the end of the day. Ask them the hard questions that they kind of dilly-dallied around while on stage. So you can grab them over lunch and get those done. It's been an absolute pleasure to spend this time with all of you on the stage having this conversation. And thank you to the organizers for giving us the opportunity. Please give a round of applause to the panel.